Now we're going to demonstrate Adlerian therapy. What we're going to do is do this in 2 short segments. The first one will give you some background to the client's, what her history has been, and then we'll do a short follow-up visit after that. Heather, I'm so glad you came in today. I understand that you've been having some concerns. Can you tell me a little bit?
It's my boss, it's my job. I mean, I need this job to put food on the table, but my boss is just driving me absolutely bananas, and I don't know what to do. And I just got like the 2nd warning, and you get 3 warnings and they can you. So I'm really afraid that if something doesn't change, then I'm out of there. But there's not, I mean, this is Walla, this is a small community. There's not a lot of different places to go. And I can't imagine my boss stepping down or getting fired. So, people are saying, Heather, if you want to keep this job, you're going to have to learn to deal with the situation. Well, I went to the EAP and they said, I think you need to get some counseling. That's what happens in the 2nd warning in my job. So here I am.
Okay. Do you want to share some of the details of the conflict that you had with your boss? It's your boss, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my boss. Well, I'm a teacher. And my boss is the principal of the school. And, they get jobs and they stay there forever and ever and ever. And I was, this most recent thing was I'm there in the classroom and there was this kid and the kid wasn't doing his work, and so I was talking to the parents, and I don't know, the parents went and they complained to the principal about the way that I was working with the kids. I'm a 3rd grade teacher, and then she just comes into my office and she says, Heather, I have to talk with you about this. This is your 2nd warning and you cannot be like this. And she's just like ranting at me, and I'm just feeling like this tall, and I just want to just disappear to the ground. The whole thing is just blown out of proportion, and it's all crazy, and I just don't know what to do about it. I mean, I kind of like my job, I kind of like the kids, but if you get a bad name in the district here, you got to move, I don't know, to Oregon and get the teaching certificate there all over again, but I just don't know if I can stay working with her. We got this thing going between us.
Well, let me ask you, have you ever experienced something like this before?
My mother. Oh. When she's talking to me, it's just like energy, it's just flash. This is like, I just said I feel about this doll. Well, I think part of the reason I feel about this doll is it just reminds me of my childhood. My mom would just come in for whatever, and she'd just like be hollering at me and just yelling at me like, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you did the next thing wrong, and here it is.
Yeah.
All over again, and oh goodness, I'm 40 years old, I mean.
You're not 8 anymore.
Yeah, I feel that way.
Have you had other work situations or relationship? Are these 2 circumstances the only time that something like this has happened before?
Well, I mean, my mom was, mom. She still
She's
mom. And it's better, we're adults now, but in part it's better because I live here in Washington and she lives in New York, and you talk on the phone. I've been here at this school for 5 years now, and so I have a fairly, not long-standing relationship, but it's been the same principal and me. And so we've kind of known each other for a while. I've worked for male supervisors before, mostly. So, and I have girlfriends and we get along okay. So this is the worst. I mean, I guess there's been other times when I've had conflicts, but I'm not sure that it's ever been to this extent. Yeah.
But in the past, is your supervisory person has always been a man?
Well, like when I was a teenager and when I was in my early 20s, going to school and so forth, I've got a master's degree in education, and so like bosses I had to know when you work at McDonald's, you work waiting tables and stuff like that. then if I didn't get along with the boss, I just quit because it was pretty easy to pick up another waiting table job. But when you ask that question, as I'm thinking about the jobs that I sort of blew out of, and then I was also just sort of thinking about the classes where I really struggled. I think it probably was more with women bosses. I never even thought about that before.
Do you think that something like your current boss, for instance, you already started to make some correlation between the way your mother had treated you and the way this felt? Do you remember in those circumstances whether it does remind you of the way you were treated as a child?
I know that the way that I feel is just this big, and it seems like it just comes out of the blue, and it just keeps coming and coming, and like where is this? This is totally unanticipated, totally unexpected. Where are you coming from? I just don't understand.
Yeah. Do you find that your reaction is almost out of your control at that point?
Yeah, I think I just become it's crazy.
Somebody different than who you actually are.
Yeah.
And when you had
and certainly than who I want to be.
Sure, you don't want to be like you can hear yourself, but
how could I have done that? There again.
Yeah.
And it's almost like something just takes over, and I become this kind of crazy woman, and then I just become this little quivering puddle of helpless
Jello.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you remember having conflicts in the past with your male supervisors or male professors? And how did you handle them then?
I mean, there's never anything like this. Yeah, there was one class in college where I was just sure that I had done better on an assignment than what the grade was, and that was a male professor, and I remember kind of screwing up my courage and talking to my friends, and I said, go talk to him. I had a couple of them read the paper and say, it's better than C paper, go talk to him. And so I just kind of went in and did some good old deep breathing exercises, and that went okay. And then I had a boss at the teaching job I had at the school before. I moved. I'm at Sharpstein now, and I used to be, and that, there was a male principal there, and I had no troubles with him at all. He was a good guy, and he kind of seemed to like my teaching style, and I liked his management style, and we got along, and there was no trouble. But then this other position opened up to switch teaching grades, and I decided I was ready to teach a different grade, and so I took the transfer, and that was a mistake, because we had this boss. But I never thought about as a male boss or female boss. I just thought there's people I get along with, and there's people I don't get along with.
Well, Heather, I'd like to suggest that maybe we start to think about some basic assumptions that might be faulty. And one that might be is that the fact that your mother treated you in those ways, made you feel small, was demeaning, is that there might be circumstances when you encounter a female who's in some authority that you might also react into that person's going to be like my mother.
Instead of it being that she is like my mother?
Well, you may actually see that person as she is the mean, demanding, belittling mother in that circumstance. And if that is an assumption that you carry into other relationships, it might be that you relive those circumstances in those relationships. And it's kind of, it's like a mistake in assumptions that you make, and that mistake gets lived out again in other, in this case, female relationships.
So let me see if I get this right. You're saying that there's something about me and kind of about the way that I may be looking at my boss, and kind of, because I certainly agree that the way I feel is like the way I felt when I was a kid. But so that I'm kind of carrying this around with me, and it's not that this boss just happens to be a sort of clone of my mother who looks different?
Very much like that. I think that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And I think as we work together further, is we might examine the thinking that you have in relationship to these past experiences. And could it be that we could challenge that assumption that you have? And if that we could get you to react or act in different ways based upon new assumptions that you might develop. How does that sound about working on it in that fashion?
Well, I like the idea of reacting or
Differently.
acting differently, because I would certainly agree, I don't like the way that I act and react now. It's hard for me to believe that I might be bringing something to the situation and it's not just something inherent in the situation. So I'm going to have to kind of cogitate
Work on that
for a
route.
while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go down this path together and see what we find. You know, maybe it could be that there is something different, but it's worth, I think, examining.
I'll look at it. Okay.